Well, howdy, y'all. Welcome to episode number 94 of Once Upon a Time in Texas. I am your host, Michael Mitchell. So, as always, I like to do the little update, kind of the random crap going on. Got some stuff still going on here in Wichita Falls with City Council. We've got a runoff going for City Council members at large. And that runoff, I guess, today when I'm doing this, it's Tuesday the 10th. Today is the last day for early voting. And then you have to go vote on the 14th, I think. Yeah, 14th, if you haven't voted already. And so we've got two great candidates that are running for that. Austin Cobb and Samuel Pack. Both of them are great guys. Sam I've known for a long time. Austin I've gotten to know quite a bit over the last year or so. Just super good people. I'll tell you, Wichita Falls is going to be better for having one of those two gentlemen serving on our city council. It's pretty cool. Some other new things that are going on here in the Falls. I am chair of the City Revitalization Committee, and we're working on doing a neighborhood empowerment zone, which will affect, some property tax abatement things. We're also looking at maybe changing a little bit of the property code because current code that kind of falls over the whole city really doesn't fit for rebuilding or remodeling homes in this area because it was kind of the wild, wild west back in the day. And so it's kind of cool to be chair of that and to be kind of working through those issues. Things like that. So some other new things. We have a couple of big data centers coming to town. So we're going to be kind of on the cutting edge of some of this stuff. I know our Chamber of Commerce has done a great job. We've got some data centers, at least two, I think, coming here, maybe a third. We're also getting a what they call a last mile Amazon warehouse. And so it's going to be basically a big ass warehouse with Amazon stuff. And it's based on what this area basically is ordering. And so stuff is going to be either by train or truck will be shipped in here. Stuff will be stored in that warehouse and kind of a cool deal. Tonight I've got my son's Christmas concert. Looking forward to that. Both of my girls are going to be out with their scout troop shortly after the Christmas concert. They're going to be out with their scout troop, working on their religious badge for the Scouts, which will lead into all kinds of other, scholarship opportunities and just, overall, a Scout is reverent too. That's the 12th point of the Scout law. And so they're learning a little more about that without it being just, crammed down their throat. But they're learning as they should in Scouts. And so that's awesome. It's really just a great time to be here in Wichita Falls and really in Texas as a whole. I mean, Texas is just growing by leaps and bounds. Technology and all kinds of cool stuff is coming to Texas as a state. So yeah, I just can't say enough about where we live, either if you're here in Wichita Falls or just in Texas as a whole. And cool place and cool time to be here. So I'm excited. So did you know, speaking of Wichita Falls, that our town used to have its own line of trucks? Also, what about a town with a hexagon-shaped hotel? That sounds interesting. And lastly, have you heard the legend of the Texas Candy Lady? You might have, but I bet you haven't, because I've lived here a long time and I haven't. So let's jump into it. And of course, before we jump into it, I always want to thank our sponsors. That's me and Victory Home Loans. I know there are tons of people moving to and in Texas and Oklahoma. And I know a lot of y'all do too. So if you know somebody looking to buy a house, refinance a house, do a cash out refi, or even a reverse mortgage, send them my way. TheMichaelMitchell.com, THE MichaelMitchell.com. Even if somebody's wanting to do investment properties, I can help with that too. Just, trying to build up this small business of mine. I work with a great company called Victory Home Loans. And the long and the short of it is I'm a mortgage broker. And so I think we're up to 28 or 30 different lenders that we can shop to help find you the best deal to fit your needs. Now, that doesn't always mean that we find someone to fit your needs, because some of y'all need a little more help on the front end before you get a loan. But that's okay too. I don't mind working with folks and helping folks, because really I want to just get people a piece of that American dream. So send them my way, themichaelmitchell.com, THEMichaelmitchell.com. And remember, when you work with me in Victory Home Loans, we sell dreams, not mortgages. So where did this week's idea come from? Well, again, really, it's just random Facebook posts. All of these were just random Facebook posts, except for the Wichita Trucks thing. That one I'd seen stuff about and just really decided to get into, dig into it. But I kind of had to do a little searching this week. The Wichita Falls Motor Company, there's just not a lot of information out there, which is surprising because it was a big deal back in the day and were shipped all over the place, and there's just not much historical info out about it. But that's okay. I'm going to give you what I've got. So the Wichita Falls Motor Company was around from 1911 to 1932, so only 21 years. It was the most successful motor vehicle manufacturing business ever established in the USA. Now, or in Texas and the USA. So keep in mind, we do have, we've got like Tesla here now, so that might have edged them out. But, we also have Toyota that's built in Texas, but most of the parts are still made overseas, and they're just put together here, kind of like Legos, I guess. But this was actually manufactured and built here, and it was very successful. I found one short article about the company on a Google search, and I can't find it again, so I can't give credit where the credit's due. And so if you are this person that wrote this article, I'm sorry. But here's what it says. It is estimated that over 10,000 Wichita trucks of all types were built. They were exported around the world and could be found in Belgium, Burma, Chile, China, Costa Rica, Cuba, Ecuador, England, France, the Gold Coast, Greece, Holland, India, Italy, Jamaica, Japan, Mexico, Morocco, New Zealand, Panama, Persia, now Iran, Russia, Spain, and Thailand, among some other places. The first truck was delivered to a Wichita Falls company in December 1911. In 1912, the company received the nation's largest ever truck order, 150 vehicles intended for Colorado. What that was for, I don't know. It doesn't say. That's what I'm talking about. The history's kind of weird. I'm hoping somebody that listens to this podcast might have some more information on the Wichita Falls Motor Company. But the plant employed about 100 men at its peak, which was during the First World War, during which time security concerns required armed guards at the plant to prevent sabotage. Keep in mind, we didn't have Shepherd Air Force Base then. We did have Call Field, which coincidentally was right next door to the Wichita Falls Motor Company plant, or the Wichita Truck plant. So at this time, it was capable of producing 2 whole vehicles a day. Wow. 2 vehicles a day. The company introduced a road building truck in 1915, a bus capable of seating 20 passengers soon after, and one of its last innovations was the introduction of a concrete mixer truck in 1930. That's pretty much all that article had to say. Did it give a lot of information? Sort of. About 10,000 trucks shipped all over the world. And to my knowledge, there's only one of those trucks in town currently. And it's at the Kemp Center for the Arts. And even it's in rough shape. I have been told there's another one in town, but I've never laid eyes on it, and I hope to see it someday. I was able to find out a little bit more history from 1063thebuzz.com, which is a local radio station, 106.3 The Buzz. And here's what they have. At one point, you could have had a Wichita Falls truck. That's right, one built right here in our fair city. So here's a little piece of Wichita Falls history you might not know about. The Wichita Falls Motor Company. It was established in 1911 by Joseph Kemp, who was a big part in building Wichita Falls at the turn of the century. He helped get a railway to our city and was established in several businesses throughout Wichita Falls, including groceries, banking, oil, and glass, to name a few. It says oil and glass, but that might have also been gas. I'm not sure. So Joseph Kemp was a big part of the Wichita Falls economy, and for 2 decades he dipped his toes into the trucking business. With the help of some investors, Wichita Falls Motor Company started building reliable pickup trucks. A Wichita truck was known as durable. Seriously, everyone wanted one. They shipped out to 86 countries around the world. During World War I, the French armied good Lord. During World War I, the French army ordered 3,500 of them for battle lines. I have been told this was actually the first motorized vehicle used in war, basically on the battlefield, because they were mobile, and you got to think World War I, we were moving from horses to other things. I've been told that. I don't know if it's true. If it's not, send me a message, let me know. The end of World War I was not good for truck manufacturers because there was now a surplus of these big army trucks. The Wichita Falls Motor Company apparently adapted and started building dump trucks. First local, then state, and finally the federal government began huge road building programs. The Wichita Falls Motor Company benefited from this greatly. Sadly, the Great Depression of 1929 affected everyone throughout the country, and the Wichita Falls Motor Company was not immune to this. They would close their doors in 1932. It is estimated the company made around 10,000 trucks throughout their 2 decades in business. Besides the dump trucks and pickup trucks mentioned, they briefly made buses and cement mixing trucks. The Wichita Falls Motor Company on Arthur Street still stands. It's occupied now by the Wichita Energy Company. And I don't know that anybody really knows what they do. I've had some people tell me, oh, they build winches. I don't know. I don't see people there a whole lot. So anyway, the Texas Transportation Museum out in San Antonio has a write-up, I'm told, on the history of the Wichita Falls Motor Company, but I couldn't find any information about it online. So sadly, this is pretty much all of the information I can find on the Wichita Falls Motor Company. I wish there was more, and I would love to see a couple of these trucks up close. They sound like pretty cool machines. So if you know somebody that has a Wichita truck, or has some more history on Wichita trucks, tell them to give me a shout. TheMichaelMitchell.com. I would love to see it. I just think it's a fascinating piece of history that most folks don't know much about. And you can still drive by and see the cool old building if you want to. It is back behind Lowe's here in Wichita Falls. It is a neat looking old building. So now is a fascinating building, a Hexagon hotel to be specific. That's right, I said it, a Hexagon hotel. I saw a photo and a short story on Facebook's Traces of Texas page and did a little digging, and this is really a cool place. I landed on hhhistory.com and found the most information there about this pretty unique place. Here's what the article says. And I really like the way the article starts, and you guys will understand here in a second. The article starts off with, once upon a time, in Mineral Wells, Texas, a man named David Galbraith built a hexagon-shaped hotel. Construction started on the unique building located on the 700 block of North Oak Street in 1895 and was completed in 1897. The hexagon-shaped design was utilized to create better airflow in the days before air conditioning. And let me just say a Hail Mary, thank God, praise Jesus for the person who invented air conditioning, because wow, that has changed our lives. Anyway, this was built for better airflow. You've got more sides, more air can flow through, makes sense. Another unique feature was that the building was the first hotel in town to have electricity. Well, that's kind of cool. The hotel was constructed of long leaf yellow pine with cypress siding on the exterior walls. Pegs and square nails were used to hold the place together, which was common. The roof was covered with hand-split cypress shingles. The interior walls were made of heart of the pine wood. All of the stonework was done by 2 stonemasons from England. I encourage you guys, get on and look up Hexagon Hotel online and you'll see it's a cool looking place. The beautiful indoor staircase started at the top floor and elegantly spiraled down through the other levels. The lobby floor was covered with hexagon-shaped tan, brown, and blue tiles. The sleeping rooms, or hotel rooms I guess, were also hexagon-shaped with a bath between every 2 rooms, which that would have been unique as well. So Mrs. Merriweather, who was the daughter of David Gilbreth, lived in the house for many years, and she said, "We have an average of 40 persons a week go through the house, almost all of them from out of town," said the charming Mrs. Merriweather, "and hundreds more stop just to see the exterior. Yet we can no longer afford to keep up the 30-room, 4-story house just so tourists can look at it. Sadly, the historical building was torn down in 1959. Mrs. Merriweather's father was a great admirer of bees, and he modeled the old house's floor plan after a honeycomb. Each room had 6 sides, and most had windows facing in 3 directions, giving them excellent ventilation. Mr. Gilbreth was a forward-thinking businessman who is credited with creating the paperclip." Interesting. So where'd this guy get his money? I guess he invented the paperclip and then built a hotel. So is that not interesting? I mean, seriously, get online and look this up. It is such a cool looking place. I mean, I wished we could go see it, but unfortunately it was torn down. However, in Mineral Wells, they do still have the Baker Hotel, and they are remodeling it. You can go check it out. Mineral Wells is just a really, really cool place to go check out. So lastly, let's talk a little lore, a little legend, a little myth, because everybody kind of likes that. Has anyone out there ever heard of the Texas Candy Lady? I hadn't. Sounds a little strange, and to be honest, it is. And although I hadn't heard of this, as is with most legends, this one has kind of grown over the years, but there is a penchant of truth in the story. So there were several websites that wanted money to read their articles, and me being the cheap ass that I am, I declined. Respectfully, I'm sure their articles are good, but I did find a great article on onlyinyourstate.com, which is a really cool website, by the way. Had a little fun exploring that. But here's the article, and here's what they say about the Texas Candy Lady. Are you ready? Because hold on to your hats. It's a little weird. Most urban legends have at least a shred of truth, and the story of the Candy Lady is no exception. This terrifying tale, which is one of the creepiest urban legends in Texas, centers around a woman named Clara Crane, with C's. After being released from the psychiatric hospital she was committed to for killing her husband, she continued to terrorize the small town of Terrell. That's what it says. The sleepy town of Terrell, Texas was once home to Clara Crane, a woman born in 1871. Her husband was an older gentleman by the name of Leonard Gilbert Crane, and the two had one little girl who they called Marcella. Leonard was a farmer by trade, and tragically, Marcella died in an accident out in the fields when she was just 5 years old. Now, that doesn't sound too terribly uncommon. The loss of a child is always a tragedy, but especially back in these days, it happened more often than not. But she died in an accident, of course. That's kind of how legends start. However, Clara blamed her husband Leonard for Marcella's death, even more so after she found out he had been drinking at the time of the accident. 2 years later, still stricken with grief, Clara decided to take revenge on her husband. She laced a few caramel candies, her husband's favorite, of course, with poison and offered them to him. He died as a result of eating the lethal candy. The following day, a neighbor came by to check on Clara after noticing her shaken and frenzied state. Clara was taken into custody after becoming aggressive towards County Sheriff Fred Springer, who the neighbor had called. The sheriff discovered what had become of poor Leonard, and Clara was placed on trial for first-degree murder. Sounds legit so far. Instead of receiving life in prison, of course, they give leniency a little bit to lots of women back in the day, not to be confused with the one who was hung that I had a podcast on not too long ago, but they decide to do a little leniency, and instead of receiving life in prison, Clara was incarcerated in the North Texas Lunatic Asylum, now known as the Terrell State Hospital. She was released in 1899. Hold up. She was born in 1871. Okay, so she's released in 1899 at the ripe old age of, what is that, 28? Yeah. She's released in 1899 due to overcrowding. And this is where the urban legend begins. According to local legend and lore, children began to go missing near the old Crane property in 1903. Now, I dug around on a few other websites, so one thing it did say of her being released to the asylum, yes, there was overcrowding, but they said that Clara was basically, so good, so nice, so polite. She did all of her treatments. Basically, she was released on her own recognizance that she had been a model prisoner of the lunatic asylum. So now we jump into she's released and children go missing around the old Crane property. Apparently between 1903 and 1913, it was 8 children. And the children were found, of course, with candy wrappers. Children found candy wrappers on their windowsills signed by the Candy Lady. That's weird. Additionally, a town farmer came across teeth in his field. Teeth so small they could have only belonged to children. The local sheriff who was investigating the local children missing also vanished. And in several stories it said that his body was later found in a ditch. One said it was found by a lake. And another one, like this article, said forks were stabbed into his eyes and his pockets were stuffed with what? Well, candy, of course. I found conflicting reports on all of this, whether he had forks in his eyes or not, whether he had candy in his pockets or not. But it sure adds a lot to the legend, doesn't it? Could you imagine investigating stuff like that and then they find the person investigating it murdered with candy in his pocket? Sounds weird, but of all things, like a lot of lore, myth, and legend, basically that's where the story ends. 8 children go missing. Other kids find candy wrappers on their windowsill, signed the Candy Lady. The sheriff passes away somewhat mysteriously, and they find him, whether he has forks in his eyes or not. But the big myth is he's got candy in his pockets, and that's where they end. No more missing children after 1913, and there is no other mention anywhere of Clara that I can find, which of course just adds more to the myth and legend or this story. So did Clara pass away? I mean, in 1913, she would have been, 29, 39, 42? So, I mean, people died at a much earlier age back then. She had spent some time in a lunatic asylum. Did Clara pass away and just nobody noticed? Did she move away and start a new life? Who knows? Maybe somebody listening in Terrell, Texas knows a few more details. I would love to know this. So I tried to add this one in just because I've got a buddy that likes kind of creepy stuff like this. And so I've been trying to find some more lores and legends. So to that buddy out there, you know who you are. This one's for you. So what do y'all think? Let me know what other weird, off-the-wall, interesting Texas history, what lore, myth, or legend you'd like to hear about. I want to thank our sponsors again. Of course, me and Victory Home Loans. Keep in mind, if you know someone moving to or in Texas or Oklahoma, where I'm licensed, send them my way. TheMichaelMitchell.com. THE MichaelMitchell.com. Remember, I sell dreams, not mortgages, because who the heck wants a mortgage? Not me. But that's okay. Thank y'all for tuning into episode 94 of Once Upon a Time in Texas. Keep that candy in your pockets. Don't take candy from strange women or men. Don't take candy from people in white vans either, or free puppies. I have to remind my my wife and daughters of that all the time, because I swear if somebody pulled up and said, "Hey, we got free puppies," they would be taken, because they are suckers for puppies. Anyway, thank y'all for tuning in to episode 94 of Once Upon a Time in Texas. As always, remember, the stars at night are big and bright, and the candy is tasty. Deep in the heart of Texas. Y'all have a great week.